Welcome back, everybody, to another week of Sunday School here at the Lighthouse Church of the Nazarene in Moravia, Iowa, where we're going through the book of Isaiah. This week, we're going to be in Isaiah chapter 18. Now, Isaiah chapter 18 is the hardest chapter in the book of Isaiah to understand. And I'm not the one saying this. That's what everybody says. Adam Clarke, well-known theologian, well-known writer of commentary. Adam Clarke said, this is one of the most obscure prophecies in the entire book of Isaiah. There's another man who wrote a lot of commentary. Harry Bultema is his name. He's from the Netherlands. He actually pastored a church in Iowa, in Peoria, I believe in the early 1900s. But Harry Bultema said, this brief chapter is the most difficult one in all 66 chapters of Isaiah. This one we're about to tackle today right here. So it would be easy to just skip over, but we have to remember 2 Timothy 3:16 says all scripture is given by the inspiration of God. So we're gonna go through it. We have to remember this is the word of God right here. That this was put in the book, so we need to dig into it and see what it has for us. So we're in Isaiah chapter 18. Let's get out our Bibles and let's follow along. Isaiah chapter 18, verse 1. The prophet Isaiah starts out and says, woe to the land shadowed with buzzing wings. Now, I'm reading in New King James Version here. New King James Version says shadowed with buzzing wings. If you have an NIV, it's going to say a land with whirring wings. Now, the New Living Translation, it's going to say a land of fluttering sails, because the word that's actually used here for wings, it can mean an edge of a wing, or it can mean an edge of a garment or a cloth, or it can mean the edge of a land. The thing is, nobody really knows what exactly this is referring to here when it says, woe to the land shadowed with buzzing wings. Warren Wiersbe, he actually thinks the buzzing wings are frantic diplomats trying to make treaties and alliances with other nations. That's what Warren Wiersbe said. Most people, when they read this, woe to the land shadowed with buzzing wings, most people will say, well, this is a region of Africa. Most of our Bibles are going to say this is Ethiopia right here. They're going to say this is a region of Africa near the Nile, and it would have a lot of insects. So that's what it's talking about when it says a land filled with buzzing wings. But it could also be referring to birds. There might be a lot of birds in this region right here. And so that could be a land shadowed with lots of birds going around. Or, I know I'm throwing a lot of ors in here, it could also refer to an area that's close to sea. Like the New Living Translation says, a land of fluttering sails. And it could be the sails of boats around the area casting a shadow on them. Or, and this is really getting off into left field here, but a lot of us enjoy it. Some people actually say that Isaiah chapter 18 is referring to the United States of America. And when it says, woe to the land shadowed with buzzing wings, they're saying that the prophet Isaiah is looking forward 2,700 years to a time when airplanes would be around casting a shadow on the lands at all times. Now, that's getting way out in left field. It's interesting, but I really don't think we should go there. But as we go through this, I'll show you why people sometimes think that the United States is right here. Because it says, woe to the land shadowed with buzzing wings. So we just went over what all that could be referring to here, which is beyond the rivers of Ethiopia. Now, some Bibles will say Ethiopia here. Some will say Cush. But notice it doesn't say that this is against Ethiopia. It says the land which is beyond the rivers of Ethiopia. So it says it's beyond. And we actually find this phrase, beyond the rivers of Ethiopia, in another place. It's Zephaniah 3:10. I'm going to turn there real quick. It'll take me just a second to find it. Zephaniah 3:10 says, from beyond the rivers of Ethiopia, my worshipers, the daughter of my dispersed ones, shall bring my offering. So it's saying, God's saying all the people beyond the rivers of Ethiopia. It's talking about a huge area right there. So we really don't know what exactly we are referring to here, or even what area it is. Now, I said, a lot of Bibles here will say Ethiopia. The word is actually Cush. And a Cush, it's a Cushite. Now, we have to say, well, who is Cush? If we go clear back to Genesis chapter 10, right after the flood, Who all survived the flood? We had 8 people: Noah and his wife, and Noah's 3 sons, and their wives. And Noah's 3 sons were Ham, Shem, and Japheth. Cush is a son of Noah's son Ham. So Cush is a grandson of Noah. Cush is also the father of a man named Nimrod that we would find back in Genesis chapter 10. Now, the land of Cush. So this says it's beyond the land of Cush right here. Go back to Genesis chapter 2. This is the first time the land of Cush shows up, mentioned in the Bible. But before the man Cush, the grandson of Noah, shows up. And this is Genesis chapter 2. I'm going to start verse 10. Now a river went out of Eden to water the garden, and from there it parted and became 4 riverheads. So we have to say, well, where's the Garden of Eden at? Stick with me. The name of the first is Pishon, and it has one of the skirts, the whole land of Haviah, where there is gold. So the Bible tells us where there's the gold at. We don't know where it is. Verse 12, and the gold of that land is good. Bdellium and onyx stone are there. Verse 13, I'm in Genesis chapter 2. The name of the second river is Gihon, and it is the one which goes around the whole land of Cush. So, clear back in Genesis 2, it talks about the Garden of Eden and how 4 rivers come out of there. And they say this one river, the river Gihon, goes around the whole land of Cush. Now, we have to remember that this was pre-flood, before the whole earth was buried in water. I think 15 cubits of water from the very highest point. So the land that we're sitting on right now was probably miles underwater. But it says this land, this river, the river Gihon, goes around the entire land of Cush. So most people say that, well, Cush is now modern day Ethiopia, but not just the country Ethiopia. You would also put Sudan and Somalia in there. That entire, what would it be, northeast region of Africa. So Cush, what do we know about him? Well, in Jeremiah 13:23, Jeremiah says, can an Ethiopian change his skin? The Cushites, we know that they were dark skinned. In fact, the word we get for Ethiopian, it actually comes from the Greek word, which means burnt faces. So that's the land of Ethiopia right here. So let's get going again here. Isaiah 18:1, woe to the land shadowed with buzzing wings, which is beyond the rivers of Ethiopia. Verse 2, which sends ambassadors by sea. Now, this is interesting. What area is going to send ambassadors by sea? This is another area where people say, see, this is looking forward to the United States of America because they have to cross the sea to get there. I don't know. That seems to be getting far out in left field. But do the Ethiopians, how do they send their ambassadors? Do they send them by sea? Well, they could send them up by the Red Sea. But when we're in Acts chapter 8, do you remember the Ethiopian eunuch? And how Philip goes and overtakes his chariot. So we read in the Bible that the ambassadors from Ethiopia, it seems like they travel by land and by chariot, not by sea. So the area that they're talking about here, God's saying this area that we're talking about, it sends its ambassadors by the sea. It gets even more confusing here. Even in vessels of reed on the water, saying, go swift messengers to a nation tall and smooth of skin. Now, some Bibles will say tall and smooth of skin. Others will say scattered and peeled right here. New King James Version says scattered and peeled. So this could be referring to people that are very tall and very smooth of skin. Ethiopians are definitely that. But it also could say scattered and peeled, which means a land that is scattered around, has towns in lots of different areas. And peeled could mean shaved. It could mean little hair on them, which a lot of the people that region do, but it could also mean peeled, like the land is stretched out and flat right there, which around the Nile, it could be. That's the way river bottom ground is. So verse 2, which sends ambassadors by the sea, even in vessels of reed on the water, saying, go, swift messengers to a nation tall and smooth of skin, to a people terrible from their beginning onward. Now, who is terrible from their beginning onward? This is very likely referring to the Assyrians, the ones who are striking fear in everybody and who are going to overtake Israel, and they're going to come upon Judah and try to overtake them. And in one time, 185,000 Syrians die. God strikes them. I think that's in 2 Kings 19. I didn't look that up. But so the people terrible from their beginning onward. This is most likely referring to the Assyrians. But it could be referring to the Cushites, the Ethiopians, because if you remember, Cush was a descendant of Ham. Back in Genesis chapter 10, what happens to Noah? Noah gets drunk. And what does Ham do? Ham goes and tells his brother, like, hey, Dad's laying over there naked right now. But what do the other two brothers do? The other two brothers go and cover him up. And then when Noah finds out about it, he says, cursed be Canaan, who is a son of Ham. So, right at the beginning, Ham, who is the father of the Cushites, he had trouble right from his beginning, we find in the Bible. So that could be referring to the Cushites right there. A nation powerful and treading down. The Ethiopians were powerful at this time. The Assyrians were also powerful at this time. So they're both powerful, but then listen to this. Whose land the rivers divide. As I've said earlier, there are people that try to put the United States into this right here, and they say, see, a land shadowed by wings, that'll be airplanes. They send their ambassadors by the sea, and look at this. Whose land the rivers divide. The United States, we have a great river system and all its tributaries. It's probably helped us to be as prosperous as we are. But this could also be the region of Ethiopia, Northwest Africa, with the Nile River and all its tributaries dividing it also. So let's just keep going right here. The most likely explanation for what is going on here is that the Ethiopians hear about the powerful Assyrians coming, and the Ethiopians are sending ambassadors, or Judah and Israel are sending ambassadors to Ethiopia to try to make an alliance against the Assyrians. That is most likely what is going on here. Verse 3, all inhabitants of the world and dwellers on the earth, when he, this is referring to God right here, even though your New King James doesn't capitalize it, when he lifts up a banner on the mountains, you see it. And when he blows a trumpet, you hear it. When God does something, the people will know it. But we also need to be observant and see where God is working in the world and not ignore it. In Ezekiel chapter 38, where we have the battle of Gog and Magog, and they're coming upon Jerusalem, and God says, I will strike them down so that all will know that I am the Lord. God's saying, I'm going to do it so that everybody will know I'm the Lord. Verse 4, for so the Lord said to me, I will take my rest, and I will look from my dwelling place. Now notice this. God is never frantic. God is never in panic mode saying, oh no, what do I do now? No, what is he going to do? All this is going on in the earth. And he says, you know what? I'm going to take my rest. I'm going to look down from my dwelling place above. Psalm 2:4 says, he who sits in the heavens shall laugh. Plans of man will come to nothing if they are apart from God. Now, we can contrast God sitting in the heavens, feet kicked back, ruling the earth, always in control, to the frantic activity that on earth. And we just picture God as this calm presence sitting in heaven. He has everything under control. Us, what do? We get frantic, we get anxious, and we worry. Verse 4, for so the Lord said to me, I will take my rest, and I will look from my dwelling place, like clear heat in sunshine, like a cloud of dew in the heat of harvest. Now, this is probably a picture of judgment right here. A cloud of dew during harvest. A good heavy dew during harvest is not a good thing. Crops need to be dry to thresh them out. When they're wet, they're no good. So this is probably a picture of judgment here, dew coming during the harvest. Verse 5, for before the harvest, when the bud is perfect and the sour grape is ripening in the flower. What he's saying here is when everything looks like it's going just fine. Before the bud is perfect, it's ripening on the flower. When all things are looking that's good, I believe this is referring to the Assyrians here. When they look like they're going to be all powerful, he will both cut off the sprigs with pruning hooks and take away and cut down the branches. So while it's looking good, but before they come to harvest, God's going to take them away. And this did happen to the Assyrians right here. And then their king Sennacherib went and he got assassinated by his own sons. Verse 6, they will be left together for the mountain birds of prey and for the beasts of the earth. The birds of prey will summer on them, and all the beasts of earth will winter on them. This is actually easy to understand here. And this language is actually found all throughout the Bible. There will be dead carcasses, which the vultures will have to come and pick clean. Like I said, we find this language throughout the Bible quite a bit. In fact, in the book of Revelation, I'm going to turn there real quick. Revelation chapter 19, verse 17. Listen to this. Revelation 19:17 says, "Then I saw an angel standing in the sun, and he cried with a loud voice, saying to all the birds that fly in the midst of heaven, 'Come and gather together for the supper of the great God, that you may eat the flesh of kings, the flesh of captains, the flesh of mighty men, the flesh of horses, and all those who sit on them, and the flesh of all people, free and slave, both small and great.'" This is a picture of judgment here. He's saying, hey, the birds are going to have plenty to eat because they're going to be eating on dead carcasses, which will be laying around at that time. Then verse 7, "In that time, a present will be brought to the Lord of hosts from a people tall and smooth of skin." Again, this is probably referring to the Ethiopians right here, the Cushites, and from a people terrible from their beginning onward. Now, is this a different group of people from the tall and smooth skin, or are they the same? We don't know. "A nation powerful and treading down, whose land the rivers divide, to the place of the names of the Lord of hosts, to Mount Zion." Where is the lesson in all this right here? I think the lesson for us is God is saying, I will protect and I will defend my people, which he does all throughout the Bible. Remember, Genesis chapter 12, God told Abraham, I will bless those who bless you, and I will curse those who curse you. I think that's probably the best lesson that we can take out of Isaiah 18 for ourselves, not try to interject what we want it to believe, but just that God is in control, and even you don't want to be found fighting against him. So I hope you enjoyed this lesson. I hope you learned something, and I'll see you at the same time, same place next week. Bye.